Am I going to be the only one?
Okay, we are live. We're a little bit late because there's technical difficulties and my face is really big because we're doing this on a phone, on a tripod, on the counter in the RV. So, is everybody ready to rock? We got Greg Conley over here. We're going to try to assemble on the couch and have a conversation about the tour. And anybody out there with some Q&A, some questions, we'll give you the A, you give us the Q's. Who wants to get started? First of all, if anybody's listening, can you hear us? I'm going to go with that being a resounding yes, even though I don't think. All right, cool.
So move it over just a little bit. I think you will actually get me.
Hey, we got Danielle. There we go. Now we've got the band is back together.
Where are we streaming on Kasah?
We are streaming on the Save Vape Facebook page, the Kasah Facebook page, Kasah's YouTube, and Twitter.
Save Vape Twitter.
Save Vape Twitter. At Save
Everywhere.
Vape.
We're just all over the internet. We are dominating the internet at the moment.
Yes, to say the least, it has been a long 2.5 weeks. This tour started off all the way in Arizona, then went up to Colorado. I joined the tour in Des Moines, and we had an awesome event. As I stated earlier, if you were on the Twitter space, I ended up having lunch with the Iowa Attorney General Tom Miller, who is a longtime supporter of harm reduction for adult smokers. He has a re-election coming up in just 2 weeks. And fortunately, there was just a poll that came out yesterday or 2 days ago that looks pretty good for Attorney General Miller. It'd be great to have him stay in that seat. And from there, we did Wisconsin, Eau Claire, Wisconsin, where Senator Ron Johnson came, which was amazing. I had to hop off the tour for just a mere day and a half. They did Rockford, Illinois. We had a state senator, a Democrat, actually come out and learn about the products and why he should stick up for them. From there, Girard, Ohio, 3 stops in Pennsylvania, Maryland. We did a tailgate before the Commanders-Packers game this Sunday. That same day, we had an event in Virginia, and now it's been the southern end of the tour with Charleston, Savannah, Georgia, and now finally we just ended our last stop in Jacksonville, or right outside of Jacksonville. So it has been a long couple weeks. Got many miles on the road. I want to thank people who put the tour together, as well as our driver Robert, who thus far you don't want to jinx him, but thus far he has not killed anybody, including us.
That's good news. I will also share, I'm grateful I didn't have to drive the RV at all this time.
Actually, Robert, come join us. Come hop on the couch.
Get in here,
So
Robert.
we actually, Robert started this tour thinking that he would just be the driver, and ended up becoming the entire backbone behind, I think, so much of this tour, being a sort of video editor, an arranger, a logistics person, sound editor, repairman, mechanic. Sat threw his back out all the time to try and repair the bus, because this bus broke down several times. And I think, Robert, thank you, first of all. But what are your thoughts on the tour? I'm just going to throw you completely on the spot now.
Yeah, I knew you were going to do that. I'm not very political in general as a person. I kind of keep my views to myself, and coming on this tour makes me realize a lot about how our government likes to strip away little rights at a time, and vaping just happens to be one of them, and it's the one they're going after now. I mean, we've seen in the last year and a half some major rights stripped away in states all over the country over different things, and that's a whole other issue for a whole other group. But I think that we need to step up and vote. Remember, we are the people. We are the backbone of the country, not the people that are leading the country. That's kind of the way I feel about it.
It's interesting that speaking of people, the one thing that strikes me is, how can anyone, hearing testimony after testimony after testimony of people who smoke their entire lives, quit through these products, how much their lives have improved and have been saved. Just hearing these personal stories, how they help improve all of these things. I genuinely can't understand how anyone can listen to these testimonials and feel like, nah, I just want to ban these products and compete with them. Like, how morally bankrupt can you have to be? Like, how genuinely evil are people who not only deny the science and the evidence, but want to, that just don't care about things. Like, it's not that they don't know the evidence. They do. It's not like their vested interest groups want to ban these products, don't know the science. They do. They just don't care. And it is, I think, heartbreaking just to hear, particularly about elderly people, smoke. Like, there was someone smoking from the age of 7 for decades, before they came back. Just this, it wasn't on this tour, but the one that struck me, the story that sort of got me for this intellectual exercise, because it's the most passionate about it. And the first one I know was actually where I was on Australia. Was saying that, you know, they smoked for decades, couldn't get out of bed without half an hour of coughing up black lemon tar. And then within 6 months ran a half marathon. Like, these sort of transformative stories, and I hope that these products can hope that the obstacles that they were trying to snatch it away from. I mean, this is reprehensible. Like, this is genuinely evil stuff. Like, there are people who literally want millions of people to die. It's genuinely evil, and it's just so heartbreaking to know that if we don't get out there and exercise our rights to and certain people out of bodies in a place that people care, just the genuine human tragedies that can result. And this is why the testimonies are so wide, because sometimes people might not listen to cold hard fact, but if they actually get to meet these people, that might change their mind.
Yeah, the good news is going on this tour and meeting non-vapers, people who, when they hear about tobacco or nicotine, they think, oh, I can't believe the FDA is trying to ban menthol cigarettes, or they're trying to ban flavored cigars. Or we even had somebody who is still distressed many years later that he could no longer get clove cigarettes. So even when we are speaking to people who have never vaped in their life and have no interest in vaping, many of them, most of them, end up saying, you know, it's ridiculous what they're doing to you. They all have different ideas, different theories for why the government is doing this. Most of them do not kind of accept, at first glance, the reality, which is just people who hate these products that are receiving a great amount of funding from one almost lone billionaire, as well as a second billionaire, Bill Gates, that they just hate these products and want them banned. They have to think that there must be a financial secret motive behind these moves to go after vaping products. And in certain states, that can be true. They want some tax money. But ultimately, those who are in favor of just banning these products, banning flavors, keeping as many vaping products off the market as possible, they aren't doing that to protect master settlement agreement money. They aren't doing that to protect tobacco tax money. The battles we're seeing now, where they're also trying to ban menthol cigarettes and flavored smokeless tobacco products and everything else under the sun, really underscores that point that this is a war between those who simply want these products eliminated, not for a financial reason, but because they hate them, versus not just vapers who depend on the products, but just millions and millions of people out there who recognize that prohibition, even of a product that they do not like and have no desire to use, that sort of prohibition is inexcusable.
And I mean, really, that's a really good point, Greg. That, vaping is probably the most well known, but it isn't the only harm reduction product. You do have all these smokeless tobacco products, you have modern orals and nicotine pouches, all of these other things. I discovered that nicotine toothpicks were a thing on this tour, which I've never seen before. I think I learned that in something long-term November. But there are all of these other burn technologies, all of these other products that are out there. And you've just got this prohibitionist mentality of these power-hungry, control fanatics, these high priests of public health, who just want to ban everything. They don't like it, so they want to ban it. Without sort of thinking about any of the consequences. I mean, it's about the menthol. We know that menthol are banned, and under the black market consequences that will have to state revenues, the consequences that will create race relations. Like if you have a look at a lot of the civil liberty groups, horrified of that sort of prohibitionist mindset that just set back criminal justice reform, just set back race relations, and the potential tragic consequences it will have when police start risking people for menthol cigarettes if they come from a minority group. So I think it's important that despite the WeVapeWeVote tour, that I think a lot of us are really concerned about this overall narrative of this prohibitionist mentality versus one that's based on choice and freedom.
I'm sort of curious. I'm trying to speak loud enough so that the camera can hear us. I understand we're all sitting about 6 to 8 feet away from the microphone, so sorry for the quietness of our voices. I think not a novel observation, but when some of us have had the opportunity to speak to people who are skeptics or just don't know anything about this, we have an opportunity to speak with them one-on-one. They seem more receptive to the idea of tobacco harm reduction, and are actually, kind of give themselves an opportunity to be curious about things. So since I haven't been on the tour for as long as you guys have, curious, did you have an opportunity? Did people come up to the events who didn't know anything about what was going on, and were you able to have a conversation with them?
Oh, yeah. Well, it's interesting. When you drive around in a 36-foot RV that's wrapped with WeVapeWeVote, it elicited some questions for sure. But yeah, it was, I think it was very interesting. We went and did the tailgate when we were in DC at the Commanders-Packers game, and we talked to a lot of people that were just there to watch the game. They didn't necessarily vape, but when we explained the issue to them, they instinctually understood why we were fighting for this, and it was really, really cool. Because I think people, regular people, they would root for our cause if they ever got to hear it from us, what it's actually about, without all of the spin around it. Because when we actually get to communicate with average folks what's going on, it's like Robert, he didn't know all of this was happening, but, now I think he feels a little bit differently about all of it. And we had a lot of those interactions because, we would be, parking somewhere to get fuel or food or something, and people would just come up and ask what the bus was about, and it was really interesting to have some of those conversations with people that weren't necessarily a part of our advocacy community.
Yeah, because this tour had to be put together so quickly because it is themed around WeVapeWeVote, so you need to do it in October before November elections. We just had a list of cities, a list of congressional districts, and just scheduled out event after event after event. But if there is another opportunity in my life to spend several weeks on an RV, and just let me say, I cannot wait for that third opportunity in my life to spend several weeks on an RV, that we need to do, and I wish we could do, more events at speedways, racing events, whatever it is that normal people that don't have to do this work 24 hours a day do on their Friday and Saturday nights, where you have hundreds, thousands of people coming out. Those are the kind of events that we'd love to do in the future, because that's where you meet the common vapor, someone who's been vaping for 8 years that has no idea that anyone has ever wanted to eliminate this thing. That maybe they know the name Bloomberg because they remember his failed presidential run, but other than that, has never thought about the name. And you also meet the family members of people who have quit. You meet the antis, people that come up to your bus and they think, oh, this is the antifreeze RV tour. And you get to explain to them the reality behind the product. Those are the type of interactions. We had some of them on this trip, but those are always the best ones.
And if you want to make that tour happen, you can go to WeVapeWeVote.org and do a donation there. That's WeVapeWeVote.org, not .com. And do a donation there to get Greg in the RV for another 3 weeks again. Yes.
I just saw the comment from Rog. Thank you for noting that the PAVE ladies are on tour in California right now. They don't have a cool RV. They rented a Sprinter from somebody. It's really, these folks can make their campaigns look like it's grassrootsy and what we all know better. We know that they're getting lots of funding, but they're not actually really sticking their necks out in defense of anything, to be perfectly honest. And it's they're touring a state where it's almost a foregone conclusion that flavors are going to be banned. And so this is hats off to Tim for having this idea as late in the season as it was, but putting all this together, the tour made it all the way to Jacksonville, added stops, and everybody's put in a tremendous amount of work to make this happen. So I just kind of wanted to compare and contrast, what the vaping community has done with something like this versus our opponents who can, probably take a first-class flight out to Los Angeles and pick up a Sprinter van and drive up and down California. I don't know.
Yeah, and I'll also just send out, we all send out our greatest sympathy to the state of California. I assure you that if polling from the last 6 months had showed that there was any opportunity above about 0.02%, that there'd be a way to message that the flavor ban is a terrible idea that would actually connect with California voters who are on the yes side today or in the undecided category. Trust me, I would have been the first one lining up to do a California tour, to spend 3 months of my life in California if that's what it would have taken. But unfortunately, the tens of millions of dollars of ad spending every year on flavors hooked kids in California has been remarkably effective. I just hope that there is a gray and illicit market that will be healthy and thriving in California to help adult smokers quit the legal products with the banned products.
We got a question from Steve Todnam. Steve was asking, how was your meeting with Bonnie Butts at Vaping Oasis? She's such a strong voice for us.
So we love Bonnie. Bonnie was on a trip at the same time that we were passing through eastern Pennsylvania. So unfortunately, we did not get to meet Bonnie. I have met Bonnie several times in the past, but her whole staff was there. That was a great event. They had this unique location where apparently I think it used to be a train stop that then became sort of a mini mall that then got eclipsed by actual malls as the 80s and 90s progressed. But the staff at her store was awesome. We did some cool videos. That was a great stuff.
We did get asked from Green Eyed Lady, can you please tell us the cities which you visited? But of course, as Danielle chimed in, there's a list of everything on this. So go visit the WeVapeWeVote.org site. You can see everywhere that the RV's been. But for you guys who've been on this tour longer than I have, is there a favorite city or a favorite moment that kind of sticks out?
At some point, I'm going to write a long blog post about all of the really special things on the tour. And it's probably going to be a hard thing to do because I'll probably cry several times during this. Because, for me, the best thing about the tour was the people that we met at every stop, right? Because, every stop, I could tell you, 2 to 3 people that just really made that stop extra, extra special. And there's one that I'll talk about right now because it was really something. It touched my heart. And it was the Iowa stop. And the reason why that one was so special to me, we were hosted by Heather Glenn, who probably you guys know, she's talked about this quite a lot, is going through a really hard time right now. Her husband was, in the hospital facing a very serious injury. He's got to learn how to walk again. They were facing a lot of challenges. And that happened after she had committed to the tour stop. And she was bound and determined that this tour stop was going to happen. And so for me, I would say that one was really special because that one was a real labor of love for somebody that was going through a very difficult time. And so really appreciate the Glens for hosting us, even with everything that they're facing. And the whole Iowa State group for coming out with such strong support, getting so many consumers out there. Just everything that they did was really awesome. So I'll just highlight Iowa for now.
And we had barbecue. Okay, so they actually had this amazing barbecue as well.
Barbecue in Iowa was excellent. I'll add Girard, Ohio. The shop that we went to reminded me very much of a vape shop from 2014, and in the best way. It was a community of people. If we weren't in town, probably 80% of the attendees probably would have been hanging out, talking to the owner in that vape shop like it was a Friday night at a bar. In many ways, that's what it was serving as a function of, not only to help people quit smoking, but as a community where, a bar where people don't drink. They come and they vape and hang out. The the second half of the store, the owner loves arcade machines, so he had about 12 arcade games for his 21 plus customers with free play, locked on all of them. So I would go talk, film the story, talk to the customers, and then I would take my 5-minute break to play a WWF pinball game. So it's hard to have any favorite stuff other than that one, but every single one has been tremendous.
I think for the same reasons Amanda said, that like it's hard to say because all the people places were great. I mean, you also had another stop where I think the owner was broken into twice in the 2 weeks before and still committed to putting ahead. But I have to say Iowa, I think, was probably the most special one for me. That I think at every stop we had owners who worked so hard to bring the community out to show their support. So many good people came out.
I know I've only been on for 3 stops, but you know, it just like what I saw in 2016, and you know what Greg has described, and you know, we were in Savannah last night, and one of the gentlemen who gave a testimonial, actually, we were talking afterwards, and you know, this is someone who I believe is a veteran, you know, went through a very dark time in his life, and just by coincidence, divine inspiration, intervention, whatever, happened upon the vape shop where we were, and this was years ago. He works there now, but and went inside and had a conversation with people. He found a community. He found a new hobby. He quit smoking, and you know, there are better days ahead for him. And it's one of those stories that I hear repeated over and over again, and that was the point of having these vape shops. It's not just some, you know, intimidating, scary place where people go to buy their drugs. It's always been a community for people to come together. There's a fellowship that happens, and it's this informal, organic support network that the tobacco control industry is just absolutely incapable of replicating. You know, we're not lab rats. We're not going to respond the same way that, you know, rodents in a clinical trial are, and we just need that human connection. And I think that's something we've all been talking about for years. That is really what is at most risk here of going away.
We've already seen a lot of those stores have. Sorry, I was going to say the other thing. I mean, you would notice better than I would that we are already seeing the closure of so many groups of community vape shops because of the actions of how tragic that is.
Yeah.
Rob, you also have to make a comment on the favourite stop, Robert.
Yeah.
You've seen every single one of them.
And you've heard a lot of stories too.
My actual favorite one was the one where none of you were with me. So I kind of did someone said, you should stop by my shop in Colorado Springs.
It was my shop.
So I stopped by J Vapes in Colorado Springs, and I met 60 probably military guys coming out. And for them, I didn't do any recording or video or any pictures. And to hear their stories and about vaping and all that stuff was amazing, and kind of, you know, I just sat with them for almost 3 hours. Probably one of the longest stops I did because honestly, Colorado has bad traffic. But I hung out with them for 3 or 4 hours. Josh was amazing, and the staff were just really cool and laid back. And it was just kind of a different doing one by yourself when you've only done one with the group. So it was definitely interesting. But I took, you know, it was probably my favorite.
Guys, well, anything else you guys want to talk about, bring up, anything else? We don't have any questions coming in, so if you've got any burning questions, now's the time.
You know, the only thing that I'll say is, like, I'm actually sad the tour is over, because it's been so nice to, like, get out and connect with people, you know, because, like, you guys know, like, when you're doing advocacy work, oftentimes you don't have near enough funding to do the job that you're trying to do. You don't have nearly enough help, and you're dealing with people that think you're a terrible person for what you're doing. And so it's like, it's difficult, right? A lot of advocacy happens sort of, you know, behind the scenes, and it's, you know, can be discouraging. But honestly, to get out and see how excited everybody is and how motivated people people still are. Like, to me, I'll miss being on the tour because it was really cool just to get connected with everybody.
And the other thing is, in terms of thanking people, I would like to embarrass and thank my co-worker, Colin Ben, who's also been here on the tour doing a lot of sort of behind the scenes sort of work. So Ben's been outside the camera, but I do want to do a big shout out and thank you to Ben, who's also hiding here in the bus with us as well. It's probably does. You want to come and say hello on the live stream? No. Ben is very shy and retiring, but I did want to do an acknowledgement and thank you for all of his hard work behind the scenes. And everyone else at Americans for Tax Reform, and PSAR, and ABM, and all the other groups who have been helping us, who have been working behind the scenes, making sure that this all happens, that might not be in front of the camera, but doesn't actually mean they've done any less work.
Greg, this is probably best pitched to you. The Logic MDO on menthol comments.
So this is par for the course for a dysfunctional agency like FDA CTP. So what we had was something like 11 months ago, the FDA did their mass MDOs using what we've come to call the fatal flaw memo, where FDA determined long after people had spent money to submit PMTAs that the only way a flavored vaping product was going to be allowed to stay on the market was if you had a clinical trial or a longitudinal study showing that that product performs better than a tobacco vaping flavor. So it's now been 13 months or so since then. And so what has FDA come up with in the 13 months since then for how they will assess the viability of a menthol vaping product? 13 months, a new director, many employees have likely spent hours on this question, and their solution was to copy the fatal flaw memo that the 11th Circuit Court of Appeals already determined was used illegally by FDA to knock off one of the manufacturers who is here with us today. So that's a good sign that the FDA is not backing down or changing the way it operates because of all this litigation. I would hope that JTI is already preparing their DC Circuit or a similar court filing. Although I will also say that Logic was one of the, not particularly loud, but at a congressional hearing in one or two letters that they sent to Congress, Logic was one of those companies saying, we need FDA to act. We need FDA to require PMTAs. We need FDA to take products off the market that don't have PMTAs. Well, lo and behold, look what happened. Just like Juul encouraging FDA all those years, you get back your FDA result. You might not like what the agency that is highly politicized and hates your products, hates your company. How did they turn out to judge menthol's, Roger Logic's menthol products? Gave them an MDO. So I can't say that I feel a great deal of sympathy for the JTI Logic employees. I feel sympathy for their dozens of customers who will be impacted by this, but I'm hoping that a lawsuit will be another positive step in this fight.
Okay, really quickly, we've got a few more. Which of the stops had the biggest turnout for Green Eyed Lady?
Iowa was tops, I believe. We had good turnout here in Florida, good turnout in Savannah, Georgia. Been happy with the vast majority of the stops. Some of them were not just well situated. We learned later, if we had done 5 to 7 instead of 3 to 5, in certain areas we'd have done better. Others, it's the exact opposite. So it's a good lesson in advanced work and just knowing that every store is different.
So I did just want to dovetail on some of the comments here and Amanda's comment and just say, even though I've only been here for a few days, these events are really important for those of us that do this work. I've spent a tremendous amount of time down in the dumps over this stuff. But every time I come out and actually have an opportunity to connect with people, whether it's at a conference or coming to vape shops and having conversations, it always lifts me up. And so I thank you guys out there for just being you and still being engaged in all of this. It is really helpful, and I always do get a burst of energy. And then that brings us appropriately to our last question. We got Kristen and Rog asking, when is the next tour?
When enough of you go to WeVapeWeVote.org and hit that donate button.
It was well executed. All right. So with that, we've taken up a half hour of your time. We're going to get back to doing this stuff and
one more night on the tour, one more bed that is not my own, and then we are all, or most of us, flying home tomorrow. So thank you all for following the tour. It's been a great one, and thank you all again.
Thanks, guys.